10 truths about burnout and why you feel empty and tired even after rest. There's a kind of tiredness that sleep doesn't touch. You wake up, open your eyes, and for a brief moment, you hope that maybe today will feel different. But it doesn't. The same heaviness follows you, invisible, yet constant, like a fog that clings to every thought. You try to rest, take a break, slow down, but nothing seems to fill that silent emptiness inside. It's as if your body has stopped trusting your mind, and your mind has stopped believing in your purpose. What you're feeling isn't weakness, it's not laziness, it's a signal, a call from the deeper layers of your nervous system telling you that something vital inside you is out of alignment. Burnout isn't about doing too much, it's about doing without connection. It's the collapse of meaning that happens when effort no longer feels like progress, when the pursuit of results replaces the presence of purpose. In this moment, you're not just physically exhausted, you're emotionally fragmented. Your thoughts move fast, but your heart has slowed down. You've trained yourself to function, not to feel. And that disconnection is what quietly drains your life force, minute by minute. Today, you'll learn the truths that most people never stop to see. The truths behind why your mind can't rest, even when your body does. You'll understand why your motivation fades, why you feel empty even in moments of peace, and how your brain's chemistry, dopamine, serotonin, cortisol, has been silently reshaping your sense of self. But more than understanding, this is about remembering. Remembering that rest isn't the absence of action. It's the restoration of meaning. That what's breaking you isn't your workload, but the emotional distance from what once made your work worth it. This isn't just another talk about burnout. It's a mirror, held up to your inner world, where science meets the soul, and clarity begins where chaos used to live. Truth 1. Burnout is not about exhaustion. It's about disconnection. You can rest for days and still wake up feeling like your soul didn't recharge. Because burnout isn't simply the absence of energy. It's the absence of emotional connection to what you do. It's what happens when your actions lose their meaning, when your purpose no longer speaks to your mind or body. You keep moving, performing, checking boxes, but inside, something has quietly disconnected. The brain, once fueled by the sense of progress, now operates in survival mode. In neuroscience, this is what happens when the dopamine reward loop collapses. Every small victory used to give you a spark of purpose, a reason to keep going. But when your efforts stop producing emotional return, your brain no longer associates action with meaning. So it conserves energy, shutting down motivation itself. That's why burnout feels like running on an empty battery. Not because you're lazy, but because your mind doesn't see why it should keep going. The ancient philosophers warned of this long before modern science gave it a name. Aristotle called it akrasia, the state of knowing what you should do, yet being unable to move toward it. It's not the loss of will, but the loss of why. And until you restore that connection, no amount of rest will make you feel alive again. Truth 2. Your nervous system has forgotten how to rest. You may stop working, but your body doesn't stop surviving. The truth is, most people live in a state of constant alertness without realizing it. Your mind might say, "I'm safe now," but your nervous system is still fighting invisible battles, deadlines, expectations, emotional tension, the fear of not being enough. You lie down to rest, yet your heart beats as if it's waiting for something to go wrong. That's not peace. That's conditioning. Neuroscientist Andrew Huberman explains that chronic stress rewires your autonomic nervous system, teaching your brain to stay in a perpetual state of vigilance. Over time, cortisol becomes your baseline, and even moments of quiet feel uncomfortable, because calmness now feels like a threat. You've forgotten how to relax, not because you can't, but because your brain has learned that stillness is unsafe. Rest, therefore, isn't just about stopping. It's about retraining your body to trust that stopping won't lead to collapse, It's a form of re-education. You must show your nervous system that safety doesn't come from control, but from presence. That's why you can't truly rest when your mind keeps rehearsing everything that could go wrong. The body heals only when it feels secure enough to let go. Until you teach it that peace is not danger, you'll wake up tired no matter how long you sleep. Truth 3. You confuse recovery with distraction. When life feels heavy, your instinct is to escape, not to heal. You open your phone, scroll through endless feeds, watch another video, call it rest, but your brain knows better. What you're really doing is giving your mind microdoses of dopamine to numb the absence of true recovery. It feels easier because distraction doesn't ask for awareness. It just fills the silence that healing requires. Neuroscience shows that passive stimulation, social media, streaming, background noise, keeps the brain's reward circuitry artificially active. You think you're resting, but your mind is working overtime, juggling fragmented inputs. Your dopamine rises and crashes in short cycles, leaving you more depleted than before. The brain, overstimulated but unsatisfied, starts to associate rest with boredom and agitation. That's why you can spend hours relaxing and still feel anxious when the noise fades. True recovery, however, feels uncomfortable at first because it demands stillness, not escape. It requires you to sit with your own thoughts long enough to hear what they're trying to tell you. Andrew Huberman calls this process dopamine recalibration. It's the moment when your brain stops chasing stimulation and begins to rewire for balance. That's where real clarity begins. You don't need more entertainment. You need more presence. Because only in silence can your nervous system remember what safety feels like, and only then does rest become restoration. Truth 4. Emotional suppression is the hidden fuel of burnout. Most people think burnout comes from doing too much, but often it comes from feeling too little. You've learned to silence your emotions, to hold yourself together when everything inside you is asking to be released. You bury anger beneath professionalism, hide sadness behind productivity, and disguise fear as motivation. Each time you do, your mind builds tension, not just psychologically, but biologically. And over time, that tension becomes fatigue. Psychologist Daniel Goleman describes this as emotional congestion. When emotions aren't expressed or understood, the brain's limbic system stays active, releasing constant stress signals. The body interprets this as danger, and your energy drains as if you're running from an invisible threat. You may not cry, but your body is screaming in silence, through tension in your jaw, shallow breathing, tightness in your chest. Cognitive behavioral therapy teaches that suppression is not strength. It's a slow fragmentation of the self. The mind that never allows itself to feel ends up disconnected from reality. That's why people in burnout often report a sense of numbness. Life feels muted, as though someone turned down the color and left only shades of gray. To heal, you must learn to face what you've been avoiding, not with drama, but with honesty, because emotions are not enemies, they're messages. They only shout when you stop listening. And if you keep ignoring them, they will drain every ounce of your vitality until silence becomes unbearable. Truth 5. You're addicted to self-criticism. You've convinced yourself that being hard on yourself keeps you sharp, responsible, or disciplined. But the truth is, your inner voice has turned into an adversary, a constant whisper that says you're not doing enough, not fast enough, not good enough. You live in a quiet war with yourself, where every mistake becomes evidence against your worth. That's not motivation, that's self-sabotage disguised as accountability. In cognitive behavioral therapy, this cycle is called automatic negative thinking. Each self-critical thought triggers the body's stress response, a release of adrenaline and cortisol, as if you were under attack. Except the attack is coming from your own mind. Over time, that biochemical storm rewires your perception, making rest feel undeserved and achievement feel temporary. You start to measure peace as something to be earned, not something to be allowed. Philosopher Michel de Montaigne once wrote, "My life has been filled with terrible misfortunes, most of which never happened. Self-criticism works the same way. It makes you live in imagined failures before they even occur. Your brain learns to expect pain from yourself, and that expectation becomes exhaustion. The irony is that compassion, not punishment, is what truly creates progress. When you treat yourself like a problem to be fixed, you block the very neurochemical pathways that allow healing. Dopamine for motivation, serotonin for stability, oxytocin for safety. You don't become better by attacking yourself. You become whole by learning to guide yourself as you would a friend lost in confusion, with clarity, patience, and truth. Truth 6. Your brain has lost its sense of reward. Burnout steals something subtle before it steals your energy. It takes away your ability to feel satisfaction. Tasks that once sparked excitement now feel like obligations. Even when you finish something important, the relief disappears in seconds. You check it off, but the brain doesn't release that gentle wave of dopamine it used to. It's like eating without taste, living without emotional flavor. Neuroscience explains this as dopamine desensitization. When constant stimulation rewires the reward pathways, notifications, messages, and short bursts of validation flood your system with dopamine spikes that are too frequent and too shallow. Over time, your receptors stop responding with the same sensitivity, and the things that once brought meaning now register as dull. The mind begins to crave more stimulation, but finds less fulfillment. It's a neurological hunger that no achievement can feed. This is why burnout isn't cured by taking a vacation or changing jobs. You can change the scenery, but if your brain is still calibrated to chase rather than appreciate, you'll bring exhaustion with you. The antidote isn't escape. It's retraining your reward system. Slow down your intake of stimulation, practice delayed gratification, and let silence feel safe again. The Stoics understood this long before dopamine had a name. Marcus Aurelius wrote that happiness is found not in chasing pleasure, but in mastering perception. When you stop seeking the next reward and start noticing the one already here, the fog begins to lift. Truth 7. You mistake stillness for laziness. Somewhere along the way, you were taught that slowing down meant falling behind, that if you're not producing, you're wasting time. The world glorified movement, fast, relentless, measurable, and you learned to equate silence with failure. So even when your body begs for rest, your mind starts whispering guilt. You think you're being lazy, when in reality, you're confronting the part of yourself that no longer knows how to exist without doing. Philosophically, this confusion isn't new. Aristotle saw contemplation as the highest human act, not idleness, but alignment. Marcus Aurelius wrote that solitude refines judgment. Yet modern life has distorted reflection into something shameful. We've built a culture that measures worth by output and confuses noise with purpose. But mental order doesn't come from movement. It comes from stillness. Neuroscience agrees. Moments of quiet activate the default mode network, the brain's introspective system, the space where creativity, emotional regulation, and insight emerge. When you stop, your mind begins to process, reorganize, and heal. You call it doing nothing, but it's actually integration, the invisible work that keeps you whole. Stillness is not the absence of progress. It's the soil where meaning grows again. Without it, you become efficient but empty. The body may keep moving, but the soul drifts further away. Truth 8. Burnout is not personal failure. It's a systemic illusion. You've been taught to believe that exhaustion is a sign of weakness, that if you were stronger, more disciplined, more grateful, you wouldn't feel this way. But burnout isn't proof of your inadequacy. It's evidence of a culture that confuses productivity with purpose. You're living inside a system that rewards speed, not depth, image, not meaning. It trains you to measure your value in numbers, deadlines, and metrics until you start seeing yourself as a project to be optimized instead of a soul to be understood. Jordan B. Peterson often says that meaning is found in responsibility, but there's a difference between carrying responsibility and being crushed by performance. The modern illusion of success pushes you to constantly prove your worth, leaving no room for stillness or reflection. You end up trapped in a paradox, producing more than ever, yet feeling invisible in your own life. Neuroscience shows that chronic over-identification with work triggers the same reward pathways as addiction. Each achievement releases dopamine, but the effect fades fast, creating a loop that demands more effort for smaller emotional returns. Over time, your identity fuses with your output. You no longer ask, "Who am I?" You ask, "What did I accomplish today?" Burnout, then, isn't your failure. It's your awakening. It's the body and mind revolting against a narrative that dehumanizes you. The exhaustion you feel isn't defeat. It's truth breaking through illusion, reminding you that life was never meant to be a race to nowhere. Truth 9. Your body remembers what your mind denies. You might tell yourself you're fine, that you just need to push through to stay strong. But your body knows when you're lying. Every suppressed emotion, every swallowed frustration, every unspoken, "I can't take this anymore," doesn't vanish. It hides inside your muscles, your posture, your breath. You wake up tense without knowing why. Your chest feels tight for no reason. Your sleep becomes shallow. That's not coincidence. It's communication. According to Joe Dispenza, the body becomes the unconscious mind. It memorizes emotional states until they turn into physical patterns. If you've lived in stress long enough, your body begins to anticipate it, producing cortisol and adrenaline before anything even happens. You no longer need the crisis. Your body is the crisis. That's why you can leave a toxic job or relationship and still feel restless months later, because the memory of tension is still written in your cells. The Stoics understood this truth through discipline of awareness. They practiced observing sensations without judgment, teaching the body to respond instead of react. Modern science calls this interoception, the awareness of internal signals that bridge body and mind. Healing begins when you stop ignoring these signals and start decoding them. Your body isn't betraying you. It's trying to free you. The shaking hands, the heavy chest, the sudden tears aren't weakness. They're messages. The more you silence them, the louder they become. Real recovery starts not with control, but with listening, letting your body finally exhale what your mind has been holding for years. Truth 10. Real rest begins when you stop running from yourself. You can change jobs, switch cities, or take long vacations, but if you keep carrying the same internal noise with you, peace will always feel temporary. Burnout is not just a physical depletion, it's a form of self-abandonment. You've been running from silence because silence forces you to listen. And deep down, you know that in that quiet, you'll meet the version of yourself you've neglected, the one that's tired of pretending, the one that no longer wants to perform strength. True rest isn't sleep, it's reconciliation. It's the moment you stop trying to fix yourself and start understanding what's been asking to be felt. Your nervous system doesn't need another escape. It needs permission to exist without demand. When you give yourself that space, your body softens, your thoughts slow down, and a strange calm takes over. Not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because you've stopped fighting your own existence. Neuroscience and philosophy meet here. When your prefrontal cortex quiets and your breath deepens, the brain begins to repair itself. Neuroplasticity unfolds not in chaos but in acceptance. The Stoics called it alignment with nature. Descartes might have called it clarity of consciousness. It's the place where being replaces doing. The healing you seek isn't out there. It's waiting behind the noise, behind the urgency, behind every moment you avoided feeling what's real. Rest begins when you no longer fear meeting yourself in full presence. Because once you do, exhaustion loses its grip, And what remains is something far greater than energy. It's peace. The return to yourself. You've spent years trying to fix your exhaustion as if it were a malfunction, another problem to solve, another project to complete. But burnout was never a flaw in your system. It was a message from your soul, whispering that something vital had been forgotten. You mistook fatigue for failure, when in truth, it was your body's most honest prayer for alignment. Now you understand. Rest isn't the opposite of ambition. It's what makes it sustainable. Clarity isn't born from chaos, but from the courage to stop running from what hurts. The healing begins when you stop trying to become someone new and start remembering who you were before the noise began. Before you started measuring your worth by how much you could endure. René Descartes believed that clarity comes when thought meets truth. Jordan Peterson reminds us that meaning is built by confronting chaos with order. And by Andrew Huberman shows that your biology can be retrained to trust peace again. Together, they point to a single realization. You can rebuild yourself not by doing more, but by becoming present to what already is. So breathe, not to calm down, but to return. Every inhale is a reminder that you're still here. Every exhale, a release of what never belonged to you. You don't need to chase energy. You need to reconnect with it. The life you've been trying to create has been waiting for you to arrive. If this message reached you, it's because your mind is ready to remember who you were before exhaustion defined you. Welcome back, not to productivity, but to presence.